Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always, and today we're going to be talking about this in the care package. We've got the Breitling Chronomat, or Super Chronomat B01, and this is the 44mm variant, not the 42mm variant. And there's so much right with this watch. Honestly, it's almost perfect. But there are a couple of niggles that we do need to talk about. Let's begin with the basic specs of this model, and then after we've covered the specs, we'll cover 3 loves and 3 changes that I would make to this watch, and also why I think that it's almost perfect, but just not quite there. This model comes in at 44mm in diameter. However, because it's a chrono model and because it has pushers on the right-hand side, it wears more like a 45 or 46. This is a chunky monkey. It doesn't skip breakfast. It's big, it's fat, but I kind of think that's part of the attraction to this watch. Normally, if a watch is just a little bit too big, I'm kind of like, too big for me. But if it passes the point of being too big to being cool, I'm kind of like, it's so big that it's actually got more personality. And actually, on that note, I need to go and get something and show you something, because I need to prove a point here. So give me 2 seconds. I'll be back. Oh, right, guys, where was I? What was I getting? That's the question. This is the Casio Mudmaster, and this is outrageously big. It's outrageously large and fat and too big for my wrists. But the thing about this is, it's surpassed the point of being too big to the point of actually reverting back to being cool. Now, this was actually given to me from Casio after my trip in Finland. That video is probably live now. But I just want to relay a point that if a watch truly embraces the fact that it is hypothetically too big, it kind of goes to being cool again. And that's kind of where I feel this Breitling fits in. It is big, it is bold, but it's embraced it, and it's not trying to be something that it's not. This model comes in at 14.4mm in thickness. And to be honest, guys, I expected it to be thicker. I mean, when we look at the Longines Spirit Flyback Chrono, which we reviewed a couple of weeks ago, that comes in at 17mm in thickness and is 42mm in diameter. So the fact that this is actually 14.4 or 14.5, it's pretty good. The lug-to-lug of this watch comes in at 53.5mm. Again, yes, this is quite big, it is quite chunky, but on the wrist, it is cool again because of how big it is. I don't think that the largeness of watches can be used as a con, because everyone has different tastes, everyone has different personalities, and everyone likes different stuff. And maybe I gain weight, maybe these bigger watches begin to suit me, who knows? This model comes in at roughly 53.5mm lug to lug, which is actually not too bad. I actually think this watch sits and wears quite well on the wrist, especially for my wrists, which come in at about 6.5 inches. And again, I just want to hit home the fact that because this watch is not trying to be something different, because this watch is embracing the fact that it is a big boy, it kind of reverts back to being cool. But I mean, if you want to get a smaller version, you could get the 42 version. And now, my dear friends, we get to the good bit. We get to the design aspect of this watch, where, I mean, it's so unbelievably masculine and angular that it just looks awesome. It looks like a souped-up M-Sport BMW. The curves on it are pretty damn beautiful. The case of this body is made from stainless steel and platinum, according to Breitling's website. However, coming in at £9,800, I'm unsure of the proportion of platinum to the proportion of stainless steel. That's something that I need to research a little bit more, but if any of you guys can help me in the comments and let me know, then that'd be much appreciated. It does seem quite cheap for containing a lot of platinum, so my guess is that there's not much there, but if you guys could help me, let me know. It'd be appreciated. The weight of this watch is pretty damn substantial. I mean, it's pretty heavy. You can definitely feel the quality, and we'll get it on the scales in a second, but you can definitely feel the quality, and I think that's why, in essence, they paired it with a rubber strap, because if it was with a bracelet, it'd be a lot heavier. And the rubber strap, I love rubber straps. I've always had an affiliation to rubber straps since my Omega Seamaster 300 meter strap. And this rubber strap is something extra special. It has a really nice taper on it, but what's more than that is the texture and the pattern that they've used on the strap itself. It just makes this watch very Instagrammable. It's a very photogenic watch, and that's before getting into the color. Now, it does have a deployant clasp at the back here, and that is in stainless steel, which is really, really nice. Before we move on from the rubber strap of this watch, remember that you do have a bracelet option. Now, technically speaking, the bracelet option would drastically increase the weight of this watch. So if you're fine with heavier watches, then that's okay. Maybe the bracelet is for you. If you want to view the bracelet in a little bit more detail, head to Chisholm Hunter's website, because unfortunately we don't have it in today, but we do have pictures on the Chisholm Hunter website. So head to chisholmhunter.co.uk. But anyway, as I was saying before my personality just ran away with me, let's get this on the scales and see exactly how much it weighs. So roughly speaking, it comes in at 170 grams, which, yes, is chunky, is big, and I would predict that about 15 to 20 of that comes from the strap, so 150 grams for the head of this watch, roughly. Just for my own sanity, I've actually got my Tudor Blancpain on, the ETA variant, the Smiley variant, and we're going to get this on the scales and see how much that weighs versus this Breitling. So my Tudor Blancpain with the full bracelet comes in at 160 grams. And this just kind of goes to show how heavy this watch is. I mean, just the head of it is coming in at around about the full weight of what my Tudor weighs. And on that note, it's quite a good time to bring in the wrist check. What is on your wrist today? Please let me know in the comments. I love seeing all the weird and wonderful watches that you guys have on. I've just talked about the watch I've got on. But just for sanity and just for my satisfaction, let's talk about it again. This is the Tudor Blancpain ETA version. This is the Gen 1 version. We're now on Gen 3, soon to be Gen 4, which is pretty scary. It's kind of vintage now, which I like. You know, design is a funny thing in the industry. Presentation is a funny thing in the industry. Actually, it's a funny thing in life. I mean, let's take this coffee, for example. Wait a minute, 2 seconds. Highly average. It's all right. Not my best work, but it's highly average. Based on the presentation of that coffee, I would probably pay money for it, even though I know that I can make exactly the same coffee, more or less, at home. And let me explain. You go down to the shop, your local coffee shop, you get a coffee. That coffee has a leaf on the top of it. It's presented to you in a really nice mug. It has a couple of chocolate sprinkles thrown in there, and if you're really lucky, you maybe get a little bit of tablet. And that leads you to ranking that coffee as higher than the one that you could make, even though they're essentially the same thing. That's kind of what watches do in an essence. They do the same thing, but they have little splashes that make you want a specific brand. And what Breitling have done here has genuinely made me want this watch. And let's begin with the aesthetic of this watch. I mean, the combined ceramic, a lot of details of ceramic with stainless steel. Two very contrasting colors, almost white and black, the two most contrasting colors you can get. It just looks very masculine. It looks very aggressive, and it starts on the outer face of this Breitling. It actually starts with the screw-down pushers. Now, obviously, this watch is a chrono model, so you have two pushers at the top and the bottom, just past the crown. And both of these pushers are in black ceramic, and they actually are screw-down pushers. So you can screw it all the way to the top, click this, and your second hand stops. And it just looks aesthetically absolutely brilliant. Then you work your way a little bit further down and you get to the crown. The crown is in full black ceramic with a little Breitling logo of stainless steel at the top of it. And it looks unbelievable. You then have crown guards, giving it more of an angular look, giving it more of an aggressive look. Then you work your way in a little bit more and you get to the black ceramic bezel, the ratcheted bezel, which is unidirectional, meaning it moves only one way. Now, the kind of levels of this, the depth of the bezel is a really, really nice touch. I would assume it'd be a love or hate for some people, but I personally really like it. Now, a little detail, and this is where I'm unsure. A little detail, when you start looking at the side of the bezel, is you have screws which actually screw in the sapphire crystal glass that has glare-proof properties on both sides. Now, this glare-proof glass actually sheens in a really nice blue color. It's a weird thing to say, but it almost looks like an IWC glare. It's got that little touch of metallic blue in there when you sheen it in the light, which is really nice. Anyway, back to the bezel. When you look at the bezel, you have screw down crowns along the bezel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You actually have 6 on both sides. Now, 6 screws on both sides is 12 screws. Each screw is in a slightly different position. And this is when I kind of get upset, and this is when I say it's almost perfect. This is what I mean. That is a slight imperfection to me. They should all be aligned perfectly. This watch is water resistant to 200 meters, and that is obviously supported by that screw down crown and also screw down pushers. Now, being a chrono model, there are a couple of different bits of functionality on this watch that are really, really fun. So you have a 30-minute counter, you have a 60-second counter, and you also have a 12-hour counter, as well as a date window. And this beautiful, and this coming back to that design element, they've actually included a kind of sky blue looking second hand, which adds such a pop of color against everything else on that dial. It looks unbelievable. The subdials themselves are kind of in a darkened grey, warmy looking color. It's hard to explain it. It genuinely almost looks like this. Like, this is called elephant's breath. I doubt that's the terminology that Breitling would use, but it kind of looks like that color. Now, that color combined with that Tiffany blue, I hate to say Tiffany blue again, but ice blue rather, looking dial, it's just so damn Instagrammable. It's so damn sexy, and it looks beautiful on the wrist. I honestly kind of got this watch in to say how I didn't like some of the aspects. To say that it was never going to be perfect instead it's almost perfect. But after spending some time with it, getting on the wrist, I'm really growing to this. As you can see here, this watch also features Super Luminova. It has it on the bezel and also on the hands and the indices, and it shines a bright green color. And that's actually pretty damn good for a chrono model. Now, a little detail that you might not notice is that there's also a little bit of Super Luminova on the sub-dials, on that second hand on the sub-dials, which is a nice touch. The movement on this model is the caliber Breitling 01. It's a self-winding mechanical movement, and it has approximately 70 hours of power. It beats at 28,800 VPH and has a roughly 47 joules. Another thing that I like is that everything within this movement is visible through that open caseback. Watches that don't have an open caseback have no soul to me. They don't have as much of a purpose. They don't reveal the beating heart of themselves, the engine, so to speak, the mechanics. And that's something that I love and I always have loved in watchmaking. And now we get to 3 loves and 3 changes that I would make to this watch. So let's begin with the loves. So I love the combination of stainless steel and also ceramic. It looks absolutely epic. I love the colors that they've used. The whole color scheme and design aspect is pretty damn cool. The movement is brilliant. I love the rubber strap, and I also love the fact that the pushers are a combination of steel and ceramic. I suppose that kind of feeds into the first point. I probably made enough points there. So we'll go on to the things that I would change and the things that make this watch almost perfect, but not quite. Moving on to the things that I would change very, very quickly, we have that bezel situation with the screws on the outer case of that bezel. I would like all of them to align. It's a really nice design feature, but I would just like those to align. Then you get to the fact that it has a screw down pusher, or both pushers are screw down, and it's kind of annoying because when I'm playing with a chrono model, I quite like the fact that I can just push, 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 but with this, you need to be constantly sort of have it in mind that you need to screw it back in. It's actually functionally a good thing to have, but for me, I would prefer it just didn't have that. And last, but certainly not least, why not have this watch in pure platinum? I know, outrageous. I think genuinely it would be the coolest thing that Breitling could do. I mean, it would cost a fortune, and I would never get one, but it would look damn awesome. But these are the reasons that this watch is almost perfect to me. They nailed the design. I love the movement, but they just have a little niggle on the bezel. That is it. If they straightened out those screws on the bezel, I would not be able to flaw this watch. It is honestly almost perfect. I love Breitling. I love where they're going, love where they've been, and I love the fact that we'll be reviewing more real soon. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you've enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys real soon.